So I'm joined now by Stephanie.
Hi.
From the Cult Movie Cantina. She's Our Lady of Libations.
I am.
And we are, of course, Caleb's back there. We know as he's been all episode. And so I want to tell you a story. And I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
And
I'm excited.
Feel free to comment as we go along.
All right.
What if I told you that one early Christmas morning in 1945, a house fire broke out in a middle-class immigrant family's home in West Virginia?
Okay.
Most of the family escaped, but 5 children never made it out. Or did they?
Well, either they did or they didn't.
That's the purpose.
That's the mystery.
That's the mystery of today's story.
Hey, I've been to West Virginia. Weird shit happens in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Like bridges falling for no reason.
How about the Mothman?
Yeah, that's what I was. The
Mothman will probably be a story on this one day, but I wanted to start with this one. I think this is my favorite West Virginia mystery.
Okay.
Because unlike the Mothman, this is more plausible.
Yeah, this is more. Yeah. Yeah.
No offense to Mothman aficionados, and I don't need the MIBs to show up and erase my memory and whatnot.
Okay, so we got a house fire in the 40s, and 5 kids may or may not
and
have
not
survived.
just the 40s. Christmas morning.
Christmas morning.
It's a Christmas morning fire.
Right. Christmas morning
fire. You
fire.
have a tragedy where you lose your children on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. So here we go. George Sodder was born in Tula, Sardinia in 1885.
Where's Sardinia?
Italy.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I'm happy to help.
Sardines.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he immigrated to the United States when he was just 13. He had an older brother who went along with him, but immediately turned back after he got to Ellis Island.
I don't blame him.
He just went to the U.S., said, here's my 13-year-old brother. Peace out, I'm going back to Italy.
All right.
He also would never talk about why he left Italy.
Okay.
So don't know if he's looking for a better life or it's one of those Vito Corleone situations or like some Don's trying to kill him and he's just like
he needed to get out.
He got to get out of Italy. He found work carrying water and supplies for to railroad workers in Pennsylvania. And a few years later he moved to West Virginia. He was a hard worker, smart, and he was very ambitious. And because of that, he started his own trucking company, which first hauled dirt for construction sites,
right?
Then freight, and then finally coal, because West Virginia is known for its coal. He met Jenny Cipriani at her father's store, the Music Box. Her family had come over when she was only 3, so she had been in the country longer.
Right.
The two fell in love and married. They settled in Fayetteville, where they would have 10 children.
Jesus Christ. They were obviously Catholic.
Probably so. Now, Fayetteville was a small Appalachian town, but it had an active Italian immigrant community. Take that as you will. Now, they were all well-respected, middle-class family, but let's just say George was opinionated.
Okay.
He always had something to say about current events, politics, even business. And it thought that he might have ruffled some feathers among the locals.
Okay.
Sometimes you just talk too much. In the fall of 1945, a gentleman who was looking for some hauling work walked to the back of the Sodder's house and pointed out 2 separate fuse boxes and said, "This is going to cause a fire someday," which was odd to George since they had just recently had the wires checked by the power company.
Okay.
Another time, a man tried to sell the family life insurance and was upset when George declined the offer. The salesman yelled, "Your goddamn house is going to go up in smoke and your children will be destroyed. You're going to pay for those dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini."
Oh, God.
Oh.
Wait, is he pro or con Mussolini?
Anti-Mussolini.
Okay.
He was con Mussolini. But apparently Fayetteville really liked Mussolini.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
All right.
All right. The older Sodder son saw someone watching the younger kids come home from school right before the holidays.
Right.
So parked outside the school, just somebody in a car watching the little kids walk home.
I see.
Which is creepy in its own right. Mm. So right after midnight on Christmas morning, everyone was asleep after the children had opened a few presents before bed. You know how kids are. I don't know if you...
Right. No, we always were allowed one on Christmas Eve.
My mother only wanted to open Christmas presents on Christmas Eve, and so
Yeah.
That's a thing.
We
But-
did. Yeah, we got to pick one for Christmas.
Right.
Eve.
Were you the same thing you did with your kids?
No, I made the little bastards wait. I'm not gonna lie.
Kayla, what were your Christmas traditions? Did you do a Christmas gift before?
Yeah, we'd open one the night before, and that would be our thing.
I gotcha.
That'd be we. I mean, we didn't. Until
Mom
they
couldn't
got
wait.
older.
Mom still can't wait. She does Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Well, as I got older, we did our Christmas Eve because trying to navigate
Right.
the girls with the boys and
Right.
schedules.
Mm-hmm.
So right after midnight on Christmas morning, everyone was asleep, and the children opened a few presents before bed. The telephone rang and woke Jeannie up, who said an unfamiliar female voice asked for someone she did not know. She said, "You have the wrong number," and hung up the phone. Heading back to bed, she noticed the downstairs lights were on and the curtain open. The front door was unlocked, but it's 1945. I don't expect it to be locked.
Right.
She saw her 17-year-old daughter, Marion, sleeping on the couch. She figured that the other kids were in their beds asleep, and so she went to bed. She was almost asleep when she heard a loud bang on the roof, then a rolling noise. An hour later, she was awakened by heavy smoke pouring into the room. George and 4 of the children managed to escape. Marion, their 2 sons, 24-year-old John and 16-year-old George Jr., and the 2-year-old Sylvia, who was in her crib in George and Jeannie's room.
Right.
They all got out. George sought the other 4 kids, 14-year-old Maurice, 12-year-old Martha, 9-year-old Louis, and 8-year-old Jenny, and 5-year-old Betty. Were trapped in the 2 bedrooms on either side of the house, separated by a staircase that was now engulfed in flames. Now, that's 9 kids. They had an older son who was in the Army at the time.
Okay.
So that accounts for the 10 children.
Okay.
So house is on fire. The staircase is engulfed. George tried to get the kids out. Couldn't get the kids out.
Right.
So he couldn't get them from the inside, but he tried to go outside. But the ladder he kept out back was missing.
Oh my God.
He then tried to get his 2 coal trucks and move them to the side of the house so he could climb in and get the kids out. But neither one of them would crank.
Oh shit.
Marion sprinted to the nearby neighbor's house, and she called the fire department, but couldn't get an operator to respond. Another neighbor who saw the fire made a call from a nearby tavern, but again, no operator responded.
Oh God.
A third neighbor tried to track down the fire chief who activated Fayetteville's fire alarm system, which was this. It's a phone tree system where one firefighter would call another,
Right.
then call another, then call another. The fire department was 2.5 miles away, but the crew didn't arrive until 8 a.m. By then it was too late. The Sodders' home was nothing more than a pile of smoldering ash. A brief search of the grounds later that day turned up no remains. The fire chief suggested that the fire was so hot that it could have completely cremated the bodies. A state police inspector combed the rubble and declared faulty wiring was the case of the fire. And the coroners issued 5 death certificates attributing the cause to fire or suffocation. Because there are no bodies, they've not
Right.
shown, so they assumed they were cremated. But things weren't really adding up. Were the Sodder children alive? So here's some odd things about the case. Jeannie Sodder, being a grieving mother and who believes her kids are missing,
Right.
conducted some private experiments, and these are she's not a scientist. She's just a grieving mother doing her thing. And so, so this is what she did. She conducted private experiments on burning animal bones, chicken, beef joints, pork chop bones, to see if the fire consumed them. And each time there was bones left.
Right.
She also knew that the household appliances that were in the house that were burned were still identifiable. An employee at a crematorium told her it takes about 2 hours to cremate a body at 2,000 degrees. The Sodder's home was only destroyed in 45 minutes.
Right. It takes a while. And also, there's usually, and I know this because I used to work in the funeral business, there's usually some bone left that they have to grind.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So.
A telephone repairman told the Sodders that their phone lines looked like they were cut, not burned. The baby Sylvia found a hard rubber object in the yard a few days later, and Jeannie remembered hearing the thud on the roof and the rolling sound. George thought that it could be part of a napalm pineapple bomb that was used in World War II.
Oh, wow.
Then there were the sightings. One woman who operated a tourist stop between Fayetteville and Charleston And tourist stop is an old-timey fancy word for rest stop.
Yep.
Like a rest stop.
Like a rest stop. They may have like a little diner or two. Fayetteville and Charleston claimed to serve them breakfast. There was a car with Florida license plates at the stop too. A woman at a Charleston hotel said she saw them after a local newspaper ran the children's photos. She said the kids were with two couples of Italian extraction, but the entire party registered at the hotel and stayed in one large room with several beds. She tried talking to the kids, but the man refused to let her talk to the kids. They left the next morning. In 1947, the Sodders wrote the FBI to help them in their investigation. They did receive a letter from J. Edgar Hoover himself, who declined, saying it was a local matter, but if the local authorities wished to investigate, the FBI would come and help. The fire and police declined the investigation.
Ooh.
The Sodders then hired a private investigator who found out the insurance man who threatened George Sodder was a member of the coroner's jury that deemed the fire accidental. He also had another story of a local minister who discovered a heart in the ashes and hid it inside a dynamite box and buried it at the scene. The box was located, and it was discovered that it wasn't a heart, but a beef liver that was untouched by fire. The Sodders heard that the fire chief had said that the liver was in the rubble, not in a box, and was hoping that it would placate them into stopping the investigation.
Oh my God.
So there's here's some evidence of your poor children.
Yeah.
But it's a beef liver.
Yeah, but, they were thinking like, hey, they won't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a big size difference
Right.
between a beef liver and a human liver.
Right, but then they thought it was a heart. They didn't think it was a liver.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Over the years, tips would come in about the children. George saw a newspaper photo of school children in New York City, and he was convinced that one of them was his daughter, Betty. He drove to Manhattan, found the child's parents, but they refused to let George speak to her.
Oh, my gosh.
Which makes sense to me. If a crazy guy knocks on your door and says, hey, I need to speak to your son because I think he's my son, you would be like, oh, no. No.
Yeah.
In 1949, the Sodders held another investigation on the site, this time with a pathologist from D.C. named Oscar B. Hunter. The scene was thoroughly gone through. They found coins, a burned dictionary, and strangely several shards of vertebrae, which was sent off for analysis.
Now, wait a minute, coins?
Yeah,
They didn't melt.
Yeah, damaged coins. They were the melt. Yeah,
But you know what I mean,
right?
Like so, and they think. I'm just saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mystery.
It's very,
The report came back that it was possible that the bones belonged to Maurice, the oldest boy, but the strange thing was there was no evidence that they had been exposed to fire. The house was only on fire for 30 to 45 minutes, so they would expect to find full skeletons, not pieces of vertebrae.
Right.
The report concluded that the bones most likely were in the supply of dirt that George used to fill the house basement to create a memorial for the children. Then the investigation was closed, and that didn't deter the Sodders. They erected a billboard along Route 16 offering a reward for any information that would help them find the children. So the billboard was there for years, and it's got the kids' pictures on it, and it had, at first it was like for $5,000, and they moved up to $10,000. More tips would come up, but they never panned out. 23 years after the fire.
Okay, so now we're in the 1970?
60s. We're in the 60s.
Late 60s.
Late 60s.
Okay.
23 years after the fire, so that's 68.
Yeah.
23 years after the fire, the Sodders found an envelope in the mailbox that was addressed to Jenny. There was no return address, but had a Kentucky postmark. Inside was a photo of a man in his mid-20s. On the back of the note, it read, Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie, Little Boys, LIL boys, A90132 or 35. The man looked like Lewis, who was 9 at the time in the fire, so it could look like he could be Lewis now. So he favored Lewis.
Right.
They hired another private investigator and sent him to Kentucky. The private investigator never returned.
Wow.
George died a year later. Jeannie erected a fence around her property and began adding rooms to her home, trying to keep out the outside world. So she pulled a Winchester.
Okay.
She wore black exclusively as a sign of mourning until her own death in 1989. That's when the billboard finally came down.
Oh, my gosh.
The last of the Sodder children, Sylvia, died last year in 2021. And the families never gave up looking for the children, as the story has grown into legend, and they have theories of their own. So, did the local mafia fail to recruit George and then do something to the house or the children?
Right.
Did the local mafia fail to extort George? Were the children kidnapped by someone they knew? They may have not even survived the night. They were questioning if it might be Lewis in the photograph. The family's Christmas lights stayed on through the beginning of the blaze. This would not occur if it was truly an electrical fire.
Right.
And people in town claim they saw the missing children in a vehicle the night of the fire.
Right.
Stacey Horn did a segment for National Public Radio in 2005 on the 60th anniversary of the tragedy, theorizing that the kids perishing in the fire is the most plausible. The house went up in a half an hour to 45 minutes, but it was left smoldering for hours. That the firefighters may not know what they were looking for, but, however, there was enough genuine weirdness about the whole thing that if someday it learned that the children did not die, she wouldn't be shocked. It's most likely that if the children survived the fire, they would no longer be with us. Lewis, if alive, would be 91 years old today at 2022. Right. Which is possible, but unlikely.
What about the baby? Was that the baby?
Yeah, no, the baby died last year. She was 67.
Right. Okay.
Lewis was he was the oldest. He was 14 at the time. Okay. So he'd be 91 today. While it's a closed case in the state of West Virginia, many believe that those children survived the fire and vanished into the cold Christmas morning, never to be seen again.
I honestly, I mean, knowing what I know about fires and what I know about cremations, and the fact that appliances were basically intact, coins were not completely melted. They found coins, they found this. There would be bodies to discover. I mean, they would not be completely cremated. There would definitely be bodies. So yeah, those kids were napped easily.
I think those kids were napped too.
Yep.
Caleb, so I have a weird addendum to this story. So as many of you know, I went to school in West Virginia.
Right.
And so, and I studied television broadcasting.
Yep.
And one of my assignments, so we had a show that we did for PBS, and one of my assignments, it was during the Halloween October episode, so we're doing Halloween spooky stuff and stuff.
Right.
Well, I had heard about the story, and so I tracked down a guy who's an expert on the story, who's a local historian.
Right.
And so me and Kim went to go interview this guy.
Okay.
And first of all, we showed up on TV equipment, and he goes, I didn't know this was on TV. He totally knew this was on TV.
Oh my gosh.
We discussed this when I called him up. And so he only wanted to do audio, which was fine because I'll record the audio, and then I can put pictures and stuff and make the segment that way. We'll have an expert. This isn't a problem. So we recorded the audio. It was a great interview. It was an hour long. I had plenty of stuff to use. There was stuff I was going to use because this is right before I started podcasting, and this is one of the reasons why I started getting into podcasting. And so I was like, oh, good. I can use this on one of future shows or whatever. We drove to the site of the house.
Oh, wow.
Where the house was, and we talked to another local politician. He was a local city clerk or something, and where he told me that if I ever wanted to get in politics in West Virginia, I need to know about the 3 Gs.
Okay. 3 Gs are?
Guns, God, and gays.
Okay.
You have to be for 2 of them and against 1 of them.
I understand.
And he's like, I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I was like, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so, weird conversation. But so, we get back, and I go to start editing this stuff. Nothing recorded.
Are you kidding me?
Oh.
Nothing recorded.
Nothing?
I had an hour long of silence. Nothing got recorded. And I watched the recorder, and I watched it. There's a meter on the recorder. You can see when people talk. I watched it. It. I swear to God, that meter was going the whole time we were to have this conversation.
Wow.
And so, I don't believe in the hooby-dooby supernatural stuff, but them babies didn't want me to tell that story.
Wow.
them babies like, don't tell the story, and they took that story away. I 100% believe that. That's a weird glitch to have. That's just a really weird glitch.
Well, that
to
being
have.
said, though, if you go with that logic, then the babies would have died in the fire.
I don't know. There's also the thing where
I think maybe the mafia just wiped the recording
Yeah.
and you didn't know.
yeah. No, but the thing is like,
I mean, that's more logical to me.
well, I mean, the recording was me the whole time.
Doesn't matter.
So here's the thing. So it could be twofold, and like I mentioned in the story, it's those kids could have been kidnapped and not survived the night.
Yeah.
They could have been drawn off and killed somewhere and buried somewhere,
And then put somewhere else. Yeah.
There's lots of places to hide people in West Virginia.
Yeah,
but
plenty.
okay, that doesn't make sense to me, because what would be the point of kidnapping children just to kill them when they could have just left them in the house and had them die in the fire and not have any issues with it? I mean, it's just crazy. And then again, what would be the point of kidnapping them and having them raised by other people? And once they become adults,
But see,
why would they have not said, "Hey,
but again, the oldest is 14.
right"?
I mean, he's practically an
An
adult.
adult.
In 45.
Yeah,
I mean,
45.
he's a kid, but he's like, he's on his path. I
Right.
mean, he's smart enough to know that these are not my parents.
Right, that's what I'm
And
saying.
so it's 14, 12, 8. The youngest is 5, and it's like, it's a weird case.
It's a weird case.
It's a weird case. So
Wow.
So I just wanted to share that with you also.
Well, thank you for making
Yeah.
me really not want to go back to West Virginia.